This model right here is small but extremely confusing to a lot of different students. And what this model shows you, these are the ventricles of the brain. And within this gray area, this is the pathway of all of the cerebral spinal fluid leaving the brain, going down the end of the spinal cord and all the way back up to be reabsorbed into circulation. What makes this really difficult, they kind of look like ram's horns, but this is what's going to provide the buoyancy for the brain. So the top lobes of the frontal and the parietal lobes don't sit down on the temporal lobes and the occipital lobes. It provides area for the brain to kind of float in the cerebral spinal fluid, make sure all the neurons aren't compressed and they can actually work, but also get rid of waste and supply nutrients. So let's look at the ram's horns themselves. Those are the lateral ventricles. In the lateral ventricles, you have the one in the middle, right down there, called the third ventricle. And if you're like, how did I skip from lateral to third? You have two. And then here, you see there's a little hole in that third ventricle. Think back about your thalamus and the hypothalamus. You saw that little hole, and right behind the hole was the thalamus, and right below the hole was the hypothalamus. And I said that there was a space or an indentation there. That space was being bathed in cerebral spinal fluid. Then, if you kind of go down from the cerebral spinal fluid, or sorry, the third ventricle, you have your cerebral aqueduct. And the cerebral aqueduct then leads to the fourth ventricle, and the fourth ventricle sits right in front of the cerebellum and in its structure of the arbor vitae. And then eventually it goes down to the central canal, where it goes down to the spinal cord. Even though there's not much to learn about this model, it is very tricky for a lot of students to memorize. So take your time and don't become overwhelmed.